starting.
Fantastic.
And I'm going to see if I can actually see it happening. Yes, it looks like it is. Fantastic. And it looks the way that I expect it to.
Awesome.
Let me make sure that I'm actually looking at the chat on this computer as well.
So that I can keep
an eye on it.
How are you
doing,
Mady?
Maddie? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Actually,
I know you've done videos on the
YouTube
YouTube channel before, but folks might not be quite as familiar with you.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Mady and Rachael. I'm a senior technical evangelist at Raza, and Rachel, I work with you on some cool stuff here.
Hello, Enrique. Welcome
to the stream.
So the paper we're reading today is Conversational AI, Social Methods of Consideration. Obviously, it's Raza. We work on Conversational AI. We think a lot about the ethical implications of our work.
Maybe that's not obvious. We do.
We talk about a lot.
I think this paper fits in pretty well.
Robbie says, I don't know Rachel had a twin sister.
We look like twins,
but call it, yeah.
Oh, one sec. There is a...
There we go. Sorry, there is an echo that I think I should have fixed now. Let me know if you still hear it. Echoes. And who says Rachel had to talk that was related to the same thing in ACL? I did. More people talking about an echo. Let me double check the other. This one has a lot of moving parts for those of you who are just tuning in. This particular thing where we have multiple people in the video. Let me make sure that I only have one of these meetings making noises.
That's usually what I try to check too. I only have Zoom going, so I think we should be good on this end.
All right. Well, there's a little bit of a delay, so people can let me know if you still hear an echo at this point. The paper we're reading is Conversational AI, Social and Ethical Considerations. A little sip of coffee by Elaine Ruane, Abeba Birhane, and Anthony Ventrescu from University College Dublin in Ireland and the Irish Research Centre. And sorry.
No, I was just saying I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, me too. I think it sounds very relevant to our work. Do you have headphones, Mady? Okay, folks are saying there's still a lot of echo.
Okay, let's do that. It's also because I recently moved, and there's not a whole lot of furniture in my current office space area. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, it could definitely be part of it. All right.
Okay, that should, I think, work better now.
All right, let us know, chat. Thank you for your feedback on this. Like I mentioned, there's a lot more moving parts in this particular way of doing things. Okay, so let's start with the abstract. Conversational agents are becoming ubiquitous in our daily lives. They are used in various areas. One sec, I might have one sec.
Let's try this. This might be better. I've switched which computer I'm in the Zoom meeting on is providing the audio. So let me know, chat, if that has fixed the problem.
Okay.
All right. Do you want to start by reading the abstract?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Can you see it big enough to read?
Yeah, I can. Okay.
All right.
Conversational agents are becoming ubiquitous in our daily lives. They are used in various areas, including customer service, education, medicine, and entertainment. As tools that are increasingly permeating various social domains, right? Conversational agents can have a direct impact on individuals' lives and on social discourse in general. Consequently, critical evaluation of this impact is imperative. In this paper, we highlight some emerging ethical issues and suggest ways for agent designers, developers, and owners to approach them with the goal of responsible development of conversational agents.
Yeah, great start.
Okay, yeah.
Do you want to start with the introduction and then
and then we can discuss.
I'll pop in when you're done.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, conversational AI allows human users to communicate with an automatic system using natural language. Right. The interaction may be speech and or text-based. So like voice assistants and text-based assistants. Okay. It may be served to the user through messaging channels, for example, Facebook Messenger and Skype, Twilio, Slack, and so forth. Through dedicated phone or web applications, integrated into a website, or shipped as part of an operating system.
Oh, like
right.
Cortana.
Yeah, I was going to say like Siri or something like that. Yeah. Conversational AI systems have many names depending on their capabilities. I know we use a lot of names. So depending on their capabilities, domain, and level of embodiment. Okay.
I guess it's like whether it's robotic or not.
Yeah. Oh, so you're talking about like an actual like physical robot? Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. These terms include automatic agent, virtual agent, conversational agent, chatbot, or for very simple systems, bot. Okay. In this, we also use like contextual assistant, right? Or like consultative agent is something that we're right now talking about. And I know Alan, our CTO, has like written a paper on this recently. So, okay.
I think we tend to go for assistant instead of agent in general.
Yeah.
And for me, the reason for that is because agent for me is like, oh, this is going to be reinforcement learning, and that's not really our approach.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Although I have been using assistant in a lot of talks and meetups, but I use agent interchangeably, I think. Okay. In this paper, we use the term conversational AI to refer to any use of machine learning and deep learning models, natural language understanding and processing, NLU and NLP techniques, and dialogue management systems to understand user input and generate natural language responses. So conversational AI would just means in this paper, if that application uses machine learning or deep learning or NLU, NLP of any kind. And we use the term conversational agent to refer to systems that have a conversational AI component and have other features such as a user interface to facilitate interaction and server-side features such as the app logic and the database. So that's if like you have rule-based systems too.
Yeah, I guess.
So like business logic, app logic, and so forth. Okay.
All right. I can take the next paragraph if
you
want.
Yeah, go for it.
So far, I think it's pretty straightforward. They're just talking about what their acronyms are. Helpful. Good to have at the beginning.
Yeah.
The year 2016, dubbed the year of the bot, after Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella described bots as the new apps, saw the launch of more than 30,000 chatbots on Facebook Messenger platform alone. Citation. Oh, I hate this citation.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned that before in similar videos. I like name, year. By 2018, there were more than 300,000 active bots with 8 billion messages exchanged every month on the platform.
Oh, wow.
Much of this growth is driven by commercial interests. Chatbots are an inexpensive, fast, and always-on service for answering FAQs and completing other well-defined tasks. Although quality remains an issue for more complex tasks, and the conversational system evaluation is an active area of research. Yeah, understatement. There's an ACL paper about that, right? Like end-to-end...
dialogue. Goal-oriented dialogue systems, I've yet to read that, though.
Me too. It's on my pile.
Yeah.
Like this one has been. Is this reading group a blatant attempt by me to read all the papers I want to read? No comment.
Right.
CIs have seen adoption in various social domains, including customer service and product recommendation, education support, medical services, entertainment, social outreach, and personal organization.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I know we've seen a lot in customer service and in product rec. Yeah, and medical services is becoming like more of a thing now, obviously, understandably, due to COVID-19. Yeah.
Yes. Ooh. And you eliminate that like face-to-face vector.
Yeah, right. As we're moving like more towards like a gesture-based, no touch, telemedicine kind of reality. Yeah.
Do you want to take the next paragraph?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Ethical concerns inevitably arise with any technological innovation. Right. Very true. However, they're often considered secondary to technical development challenges if they are considered at all. Yeah, no, that's true and very interesting.
By engineers.
Right, right. As with any technology that permeates our daily lives, the development and application of conversational AI raises various ethical concerns. True. While some concerns, such as privacy, are an active area of research, others have received less attention. Okay, so I see that we're going to be talking not so much about privacy, but more about like ethical and sociocultural considerations.
Oh.
Right. This paper examines the ethical challenges. Okay, there we go. The ethical challenges posed by the integration of conversational systems into human interaction, as well as the necessary cautions and measured steps that need to be considered in developing and deploying CAs. We hope that this paper can serve as a call to action for agent designers, developers, and owners to obviously consider the ethical challenges that we're going to talk about and list out. Section 2 motivates this work by highlighting the potential harms of conversational AI, and Section 3 discusses relevant work from the literature. In Section 4, we identify a number of concerns and propose a way forward for critical and ethical engagement throughout the design and development process. Okay, cool. That's nice.
Weird that the lit review is in Section 3.
Yeah.
That might be an ACM thing. I should mention, so this was published at an ACM conference that I actually was not previously familiar with, AICS, I think. Artificial Intelligence and Computer Science.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm not.
Also, Ravi mentioned that bots are also used virtual assistants are also used in finance, which is very true.
Yeah, right.
I think probably Erica is the best well known.
Yeah, yeah. We also have like a financial services bot that's open source and like ready for anyone to use as well.
Yeah, if you want to fork that and play around with it.
Yeah.
I can take the next section.
Okay, cool.
I don't think we really need to talk about the here's what's in the paper bit.
Yeah, right. It's very, self-explanatory. So yeah.
Which is good. Very clear, well-written paper. We don't have to do a lot of work. The history of humanity is full of examples of technology as a force for social... a force for societal and behavioral change from the earliest prehistoric stone tools through to the invention of the computer, internet, and other advances in information and communications technology. I'm sure there's a reason it's capitalized. It's just funny to me.
Mm-hmm.
The pace of change is...
Sorry, I was going to say that's how you have to read it when it's capitalized, by the way. So
absolutely. The pace of change has accelerated, and successive generations leading quite different lifestyles due to the impact of technological change. The most recent example may be the widespread adoption and usage of smartphones and social media, which gives individuals communication capabilities and access to information and other media that is changing the social, not societal this time, and political landscape. Ooh, understatement.
Yep.
This is just sort of tangential. I was reading an article this morning. So I was born in 1990. And in 1990, the only span that you could do a weather forecast with 80% accuracy was 3 days out. And now we're up to a week out with 80% accuracy, like in the course of my life. And I was thinking about it. I was like, yeah, I have started to trust like further out weather.
Same. Like I'll even look at a month out prediction and be like, and plan accordingly,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The article was, in fact, about 28-day weather predictions. It was in Scientific American, if you're interested.
Oh, cool. There you go.
Anyway, complete tangent.
Yeah.
Do you want to take the next paragraph?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Right. Spurred on by the use of smartphones, the last decade has seen the adoption and integration of CAs into our day-to-day lives. Very true. I mean, we're talking to our smartphones all the time. The release of Apple's virtual assistant Siri in 2011 shipped with the iPhone 4S. Oh, I actually didn't know it was the 4S. I thought it was like earlier than that. Wow, we went like through 4 generations of iPhones without a digital assistant.
Interesting.
Yeah, shipped with the iPhone 4S marks the start of the ubiquity seen today where conversational AI is present in our homes, offices, and social media platforms, shaping how we interact with companies and services.
Offices?
Very true.
Well, okay. I'm thinking about that. We definitely do have I use little assistants to help with my workflow. Okay. I rescind my quizzicalness about offices.
I guess Slackbot, but also I know that certain users have proximity and a virtual assistant associated with that. So it's start my meeting or set up a meeting or whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. A survey of 800 marketing professionals by Oracle found 36% of brands surveyed had implemented chatbots for customer service, with an increase to 80% expected by 2020. And I know that I think that number is from Gartner, because we quote it all the time, 80% by 2020. We're in 2020, by the way. Halfway over. Okay, according to a report from Global Market Insights Incorporated, the intelligent virtual assistant market, which includes Apple's Siri, Google Assistant, Amazon's Alexa, and Microsoft's Cortana, is expected to grow.
Brings up Bixby.
I know, and
Bixby's always like
it's right.
Redheaded stepchild.
Yeah, and Adam Shire actually spoke at our recent conference, L3AI, talking about Bixby. So if you guys want to check that, if you folks want to check that out, you should.
Also, Enrique in the chat says, "Did you know Siri voice is from a Spanish woman?" I did not know that.
I did not. Wow. TIL.
Very, I think, on the top, I don't know, reasonable? Because Apple's based in California, right? And there's a lot of Spanish speakers in California.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I know that we're going to talk about voice and that kind of stuff later on, too. I assume that's probably in the paper. Okay, so this market, which includes Apple, Google, Alexa, from Amazon, Microsoft's Cortana, is expected to grow from $1 billion valuation in 2017 to $11.5 billion by 2024. Whoa, okay. Okay, this growth directly,
Scroll.
Yeah, and indirectly impacts how individuals interact with services, consume media, and interact online. So that's interesting because, Rachel, you're probably familiar with Sherry Turkle and her work. She wrote this book in like the 1980s. I think she still teaches at MIT. Talks about how, Turkel, I think, Sherry Turkle, Sherry. She talks about, she published, well, this was first an article called The Second Self, and I think it was published in the New York Times. And then it was, then it became a book. And she talked about how she envisions technology to eventually become like this sort of second self, almost, where we're going to be interacting with technology almost all the time.
A lot of books, as it turns out.
Okay, whoa, I just read The Second Self.
This one.
That one, right.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I'm not familiar with her work in particular, but is this sort of like the embodied cognition, but like externally embodied cognition work?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, externally embodied cognition. Yeah, and then I think that today we would think of that as like wearables, as virtual assistants that we talk to, that we interact with all the time. So that was kind of prescient in 1984. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. You probably want to go back to the paper, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I'm going to have to add that to my reading list.
Okay, cool.
I can take the next one.
Yeah, go for it.
Such ubiquity and increasing integration makes CAs forces that shape, alter, and impact the experience of individuals and groups. Their impact and potential harm varies depending on the domain and target user group. Relatively simple social bots, for example, have transformed the political landscape. In a study that examined the impact of bots in the 2016 U.S. presidential election, Bessie and Ferreira, 2016, found that the presence of social media bots negatively affects democratic political discussion.
Wow.
Yeah. Although social bots are often benign and useful, they can also be used to manipulate and mislead users by spreading misinformation, which has been particularly effective on Twitter and Facebook. Yeah.
I mean, so much to say here, right? And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's nothing to disagree with in that paragraph. Agree with everything. And it's interesting that we're still 4 years later, I think, really struggling to figure out how to tackle, not even like dismantle that impact, but just like even tackle it. And Anna Rogers actually made a really interesting point at the conference, at that discussion that you were also a part of, right? She was like, we don't know where bots actually fail and cause negative impact that well. Like we're not, like we're still trying to figure out where and how they fail. So to immediately talk about how to fix stuff is definitely, something that's super challenging for one of many reasons.
I mean, evaluation of conversations just like, how do you as a human know when you have had a good conversation with another human?
Yeah.
Like, each interlocutor may have a different sort of like impression of the degree of success of the conversation, and yeah, it's a hard problem.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. You want to take the next paragraph?
Yeah, okay. So like any other AI system, CAs do not exist in a social, political, economic, and cultural vacuum, for sure. They are developed by individuals or teams of individuals with specific, often commercial aims. CAs necessarily reflect the values and perspectives of such individuals and the interests of their respective industry. True, I mean, they often have a goal, which is to maybe like decrease cart abandonment rate, or and the goal of like open domain systems, which is just to, I don't know. I mean, the goals would be many.
Keep people interacting with the assistant as long as possible. I think is usually what that's often framed as, which is
problematic goal.
Hopefully because they're enjoying it, I guess.
Yeah. And again, like, what is enjoyment? You know, how does that actively like harm others when one individual is enjoying something? I don't know. Okay. Yeah. When chatbots are rolled out to users, they become part of the social utility, where the implications of their design can be felt by real people. Yeah.
Social utility sounds like a disciplinary term that I don't know.
Economics. So I think with social utility, we often talk about like indifference curves. Has a lot to do with like preference of one particular product or commodity over another. Different kinds of consumers. I mean, that's how I know it. I'm sure there's like, we're probably talking about social utility in another way that I'm not maybe super familiar with.
I have just Googled it, and I can tell you that the top result says that social utility is a service or characteristic that benefits the majority of a population of any given society.
Wow. Okay. The majority. Yeah, good to...
But that also sounds like maybe slightly different from the economics term you were discussing.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I studied it, so yeah.
This is the tricky thing about reading academic literature, is that terms that you're like, oh, I think this has a meaning, will have a very specific disciplinary meaning. And if you don't know that, you may be misinterpreting what the person's saying.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because I was thinking of like, oh, indifference curves. I was like, how is that related here? But no, benefiting the majority of people makes complete sense here. Okay.
So in the US, maybe like cars. Like most people in the US interact with motor vehicles in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Roads.
Yes, roads.
You said cars, and I was like, what's another thing? Roads?
Electricity?
Electricity.
Most people in the US have electricity.
Yeah, that's right. Public infrastructure, not as much, although would love to have more trains, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. Oh,
yeah.
I'm so glad we're on Team Train.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, however, a combination of a lack of awareness of the technology behind these agents among the general public, company-level confidentiality, and the emerging nature of this technology has created an environment in which ethical concerns are not well-defined around conversational AI. Okay, I mean, because it's like still so new to the general public. I know conversational AI has been around for decades now. Obviously, NLP has also been around for such a long time, but it's, has been getting a lot of interest lately, especially in the past 4 or 5 years. So yeah, that makes sense. As such, we argue those involved in the process of developing and deploying CAs have a responsibility to critically examine the social impact of their tools and to view such practice as an integral part of the development process.
Here. Yeah. Absolutely.
Totally.
And I think we at Raza are in a really good position to discuss this because, of course, we build the tooling to build conversational assistants. But also because we're open source, we don't have, there's no benefit to us for, hiding information about how Raza open source works,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Everything's open. And we also believe that we're all kind of learning about all of this together. And so the more people, the more minds we have, working on this, the better, right, for all of us. So yeah, I would agree with that.
All right.
Okay.
Background and related work. All right. Also, I should say I'm listening to me at a bit of a delay, so there's a little bit of an echo, and it makes it hard to read. All right, diving in. Although many major companies, research institutions, and public sector organizations have all issued guidelines for ethical artificial intelligence, ACM has one that's really good, and ACL just adopted the ACM ones in March, I think. Recent work, 22, don't know who that is or when it was published, have discovered substantive divergence in how these are written and interpreted, highlighting the complexity of designing guidelines for systems with complex social impact. An emerging body of work indicates that the integration of AI systems into various social spheres brings with it a host of often unanticipated and harmful outcomes. Furthermore, users from disadvantaged backgrounds, such as those with disabilities or those that face racial, gender, or other bias, may face disproportionate harm. Yeah, definitely.
100%.
Particularly I think that's one of the things that's particularly important to think about with any sort of AI or data-driven application is that if the data is driven from underlying social processes that are not unethical, but they're like unequal to begin with, maybe also unethical, your application will not fix those, right? If you're just learning from the data. And may in fact enhance them over time by making them more codified and magnifying the underlying bias.
Yeah.
Just due to the fact that like the groups are unbalanced.
Yeah, and I know that, I mean, computer vision has been facing like a reckoning of sorts recently, especially because like it's very easy to amplify that kind of bias when it comes to images, and that's more prevalent or like more evident rather, I should say, than like harmful biases in conversational AI at the moment. Like the whole thing with the tiny images data set that's actually used to benchmark computer vision algorithms along with ImageNet, right? So tiny images used WordNet and scraped the web for images. And then WordNet had a lot of like derogatory words for BIPOC and women and other minorities. Yeah. And like they didn't pour over.
Literally the N-word was one of the labels that they had images for.
Right. And then when they just like combined WordNet with the images, it was just so horrible. And images are also not collected with people's explicit consent. Companies are now, I think like Facebook's actually hiring actors to like provide the data for images, but a lot of researchers don't have that kind of budget. You know, what can you do? Like, can you blur faces or can you screen the labels better? I think it was actually like Abiba Brahin's work, and I think Vinay, blanking on the last name here, which I should look up and cite for sure. It'll come to me, but Rachel, I don't know if you're familiar with
who are you thinking about?
Vinay Prabhu and Abiba Brahin. Yeah, from CMU. Vinay from CMU. Yeah, they recently, I think it's still in preprint, talking about ImageNet, tiny images specifically, that data set and all the problems associated with it. So yeah, I mean, data collection, like ethical practices with data collection has to, for sure, definitely be considered.
Yeah. Just to loop in the chat, it looks like Benjamin had a question and another Benjamin answered it. And then Benja had a question for us, the Benjamin that answered the first Benjamin's question. Is there an option in Raza to identify and block a user using unethical data in a chat window? So like someone who's like abusing the assistant or like using abusive language? I mean, you could definitely build one. You could have like an intent that this person is being abusive or this person is like, you know, I don't know what you would want to classify as an intent other than abusive language, and then include a story where the next action is just like ending the conversation.
Yeah, you could have a profanity filter, which is something that they tried to do with the Microsoft Taybot, but didn't, and that was something that they tried to come up with after the fact, which is too late by then. But you could like implement a profanity filter. I know there are some open source resources for that too. You could do like a spam filter, and like you said, just end the conversation if you identify any of those words. But what's what's tricky is that when you are, just like you said, going back to like data collection and training data sets, if your data set, like WordNet, has those problematic words and those explicitly racist and harmful words, and your chatbot's trained on it and your profanity filter is trained on it, what if it doesn't recognize that as profanity? Going back to, you know, your point earlier and Anna Rogers' point is, how do you evaluate dialogue systems? And so it's problematic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'll say, I don't think it's necessarily a problem just to use WordNet. I think it's a problem to treat all words as just sort of like this homogenous population that you're drawing from randomly, right? Yeah. Another great example would be names. Names are something that you should treat separately. You should handle them differently.
Right, for sure. And then that's the problem with like large data sets, is that you often do end up using them that way. And that's the problem with like ImageNet. And so like, how do we think about large data sets for conversational AI? I recently just started reading this paper, but I haven't. Like, I just read the introduction, to be honest with you. Emily Bender and Alex Kohler's paper, which, won best paper at ACL, about meaning and understanding in NLU and how we confuse understanding with form, right, semantically speaking, and how there's so much like media around and attention around these large data sets, and how they're almost, you know, if you have a large data set, it's almost understood that, you know, your bot's going to like understand something, or it's going to know stuff, when in reality that's not true. So, although that's like a tangential point, but anyway.
Yeah, I think it's important for like certainly practitioners, but also the general public, to be aware that if you train on a large enough data set and then start to generate stuff, it will just be hallucinations. There's no guarantee of like roundedness.
Right, for sure.
Checking with the chat. Hey, Raphael. Omkar says, creating a chatbot is very easy and interesting thanks to Raza. Oh, thank you, Omar. I'm glad to hear that. Omkar, excuse me. Lots to think about and unpack.
Yeah.
You want to finish off this?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Various studies illustrate this, as bias is found in detecting skin tones in pedestrians, right? Predictive policing systems and justice. Oh, wow, for sure.
Big can of worms.
Yeah. The display of STEM career ads. Yep. Recidivism algorithms, politics of search engines, medical applications, automatic speech recognition, and in hiring algorithms.
Oh. I am just going to go look and see who they cited for that, because that is one of my research areas. Or at least it was.
Yeah, I also wanted to talk about like politics of, okay, very cool.
Although I would prefer that people cite the interspeech paper.
Yeah, that's cool.
Sorry.
No, I was actually
I did not expect that to be
considering it. Like, no, that's great that your work is in there.
Although I will say, again, this is something I've said before in other platforms, not working as well for some groups is less important than the sort of like idea of the application of itself, and that's my stance.
For sure. Or accuracy.
Yeah.
Right. Politics of search engines. I'm wondering about that.
Yeah. I'm wondering if this is the like
what specifically?
So 21. I hate this, by the way. I hate.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh. Please go back. Yep. Just.
Nope.
I think once more, and we got it.
All right. 21. I said, right?
Yep. 21.
Scroll.
Politics of search engines. I wonder.
It's just straight up the politics of search engines. Spectrum.
Okay. I was kind of hoping for right.
No, I know there's a lot of work on like, for example, searching for unprofessional and professional hairstyles. Unprofessional hairstyles are going to be overwhelmingly Black women, and professional hairstyles are going to be overwhelmingly white women, which is the sort of like underlying bias that somehow Black women's hair is unprofessional naturally, which is clearly absurd.
Yeah.
But reflective of sort of like white supremacy in society in general.
Yeah, and then Joy Blumini's work on that spoken word poem that she did, like when she references Michelle Obama's like image classification as, first of all, not a woman, and the hair
AI
as like
anti-woman.
AI anti-woman. Yeah, and the hair, it was classified as a toupee or being fake, and it was just like her natural hair. And they said, don't you have words for our braids and locks? And a lot of that is just like not having the vocabulary to describe everybody, right? And then just like not having the appropriate words for everyone's hair or everyone's skin.
And if you wanted to watch that, notflawless.ai, and then scroll down and you can
here we go. That's the one.
Really powerful piece. And she's a computer vision researcher. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
People have done a lot of, I don't think intentionally malicious in the cases of these projects, but definitely unexamined and harmful things with AI.
Yeah, for sure. Even because like being neutral or indifferent is actually actively harmful right now. And I mean, it's always been that way, but I guess because maybe it's more evident now than before because of social media, more awareness. I don't know. So yeah, okay. The emerging body of work that critically examines unfairness, injustice, bias, and discrimination within various areas of AI is invaluable. However, there are a number of ethical considerations that are unique to machine-human conversation that have not yet become de facto considerations in the design and development stages of building a chatbot or other CA. Okay, so like being embedded within the design and development process. Okay.
Yeah, and I would agree.
Yeah.
It's a very specialized type of interface. Conversational AI and human-computer interaction, HCI, are active fields of research within academia. I would say HCI is much bigger than conversational AI as a field. Like I'd say maybe 100, 200 times bigger. However, most publicly deployed CAs are developed by industry stakeholders. I'm pointing at me and you, Abby. Among which there is little cross-collaboration or publication of proprietary training data sets and system architectures. Directly related, actually. I believe the Raza NLU launch was today, right?
Yes, I was just going to say, we have been making more of an effort and being more deliberate with being cross-collaborative and interdisciplinary in our approach when it comes to building tools for conversational software, for sure. So yeah, I mean, Rachel, if you want to talk about the NLU
examples. So this is open source because it's us, repository, and it's just examples for your NLU, and we're very welcome to add your own data or incorporate these into your own projects. And if you're looking for more details, this blog post went out today, and it's introducing Raza NLU examples. And I know that Vincent has been working on this quite a bit. So we agree. Moats and lack of access to open source data and frameworks is something that could use work. Hence us. Hence like the whole thing.
Hence us. Yeah. Hence our whole situation. Right. Yeah. System architectures. Yeah. This makes critical engagement and analysis of social impact difficult. Rightfully so. Given their ubiquitous presence in various social, political, and financial spheres, we contend that CAs may be best viewed primarily as social utilities and not solely as corporate assets. I want to come back to that for sure. The effect of unintended consequences as a direct result of design decisions holds the potential to harm people, for sure. Consequently, critical engagement is required throughout design and development. We definitely agree, I think, for sure. But with maybe the term, the phrase that, CAs might be best viewed primarily as social utilities, because I think they're used in so many different ways. Would you still classify that like internal use cases of CAs would fall under them being viewed primarily as social utilities? Like, for instance, if it's like a help desk chatbot that just opened tickets, but I think they're saying like CAs as a whole should be viewed primarily as social utilities, which also kind of makes sense.
So I think there's a little bit of tension here between sort of like public good and input and privacy, right? So certainly a lot of the assistants that we work with and help people build at Raza are sort of in the healthcare and finance domains and things where you want to keep your data very private.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I want to finish reading the paper and like pick up what they're putting down, you know? But my feeling is that the frameworks, I definitely can see the argument for being social utilities, but maybe not the assistance and the training data themselves, because that has the potential to be, and especially if you like release like your full, like I wouldn't open source an assistant that you're using in a corporate environment where privacy and security are important, because it would, I think, open you up to potential security problems. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Mady?
No, I would agree. Yeah, I too want to kind of, I think, read the paper and then come back to that for sure, because I want to understand how it's being, I guess, like grounded as a social utility, or what they mean. I know it's a spectrum for sure, right? It's not solely a social utility or solely a corporate asset, which makes sense. But yeah.
No.
Okay.
And I think I think that chatbots would benefit less from, let's say, public ownership. I'm assuming they're going to like expand on this further than like the internet, right? Because at least in the US, the internet is completely privately owned, even though it was developed using public funds originally.
Yes.
Anyway, I think I'm getting tangential because I've had my second cup of coffee and I'm good to go.
Yeah, that's good. No, that's good. Okay, cool.
All right. Language is central to conversational AI systems as a medium that facilitates interaction. That's a way to talk about language.
Yeah.
It's not wrong, but these
they're not wrong.
These don't taste like linguists. There's like a, you know how like there's code smell, right? There's like disciplinary academic writing versions of code smell, and this code smell is not linguist code smell.
No.
It's a little economicsy, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe a little philosophy of science.
Right, because like here they're saying, in a way, language has a function, and it's to facilitate interaction.
Yep. Effective and responsible design of CAs requires an understanding of various linguistic, they said the L word, elements of conversation, as well as an awareness of wider social and contextual factors.
Okay.
Language as a social activity embedded in historical, cultural, and social norms is not a neutral or objective medium.
Yeah, I would agree with language not being neutral or objective, because we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
We're like,
I would agree.
But maybe as a social activity, well, maybe the way that it's defined or described, I guess that maybe you have more thoughts on that.
Yeah. I want to keep reading.
Yeah.
I would say that just like, for those of you who don't know, my PhD is in linguistics, so this is like a discipline that I know a lot about. And this is, I think, not the way that certainly a linguist in the US would talk about language. Rather, it reflects existing societal values and judgments. Okay, I know what the problem is. So what they're talking about capital L language here, which is in linguistics used as a term to describe the mechanism almost, the grammar, the lexicon, the ability to produce novel statements, basically. And by itself, language as a faculty does not necessarily have social meaning. And I think what they're saying is like language in use has these properties, not like capital L language as like the psychological reflex. I don't know. I'm not saying words good.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of makes sense, because they're saying language as a social activity reflects all of these like historical, sociocultural norms. And in use, it's not neutral or objective. Because of who's saying it and to whom and in what context, which
definitely
kind of makes sense to me. Yeah.
I think what I would change to linguistify this would be to say language use as a social activity. Because like what's the social norm associated with like B? like the word be,
Yeah.
or like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Declensions.
But then if you were to use guys as opposed to folks and referring to a group of people, that choice there definitely reflects a lot of stuff in use.
Yeah. I think what they're saying here is that pragmatics exists.
Yeah.
So semantics is the study of like usually the logical form of the meaning of words and ways to model that. It's very formal logic-y, whereas pragmatics is how that meaning is interpreted in the context of a larger social interaction or conversation or piece of text.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on. Take, for example, how the meaning of and discourse around the word gay has changed since the 1950s. Language is they're not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So I think in the 1950s, it didn't mean homosexual. It just meant sort of like
happy, yeah,
lighthearted. And then it came to mean homosexual and was used as a slur. And now it's been mostly reclaimed as a self-descriptive term. Sort of similar to queer. Queer is not quite to the same level of neutral valence as gay is. Some people still consider it a slur.
Although in the past 2 years, I would say it has been used more and more, reappropriated.
Yes. So that's the discourse around the word gay that they are just like left as an exercise for the reader. It's also used as an insult in the United States, which is deal with that as you will.
Yeah.
Language is situational and contextual. A single word or conversation can have radically different meanings depending on context and time. Acceptable norms and forms of conversing in one context might be perceived as unacceptable or deviant in another. Consequently, conversation formats, phrases, and words that are perceived as acceptable or standard might represent the status quo, leaving anything outside the status quo either implicitly or explicitly coded as an anomaly or outlier. So, for example, if you knew that gay is used as an insult and you did the thing that we talked about where whenever somebody uses abusive language, you kick them out of the conversation, and you kick somebody out of the conversation with, say, a therapy assistant because they said, I'm gay, that's clearly going to affect some people in the population who are already marginalized in more ways than someone who would not say that I'm gay.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
A straight person.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Decisions made during development regarding various aspects of language, such as accent, dialect, or register, can encode socially held beliefs and assumptions of, for example, standard language, in quotes, into the system.
Yeah.
So just to pick those apart, accent is not as widely used in linguistics as a term. Usually when people use that, they mean it to refer to the effect of someone's first language on a second language that they speak. Dialect is usually used to refer to varieties used by native speakers of a language, usually associated with regional origin. And what was the last one? I've looked away.
Register.
Register is...
I was wondering about that.
Dialectics term?
Okay.
I've heard it used to be like formality, or like the... so your dialect, if you are not bi-dialectal, is going to sort of stay the same, but your register will change from situation to situation. So I might speak very informally to a friend, or very formally to, let's say, a judge if I was in court.
Got it. Okay. I did not know that. TIL. Cool.
I use my degree.
Okay. Yeah, they can encode socially held. Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, you did your dialect quiz. That was, I think, pretty.
Still doing.
Still doing. Very informative, I would say. Like, I, in fact, learned a lot from the results of your dialect quiz.
Good.
Yeah.
Hopefully next time it'll work. It works. It just gives nonsense answers.
Yeah.
The language is accepted and understood by the system, reflect the accessibility of the system, and this is deliberate choice during the design phase that may have significant knock-on effect for users after deployment. In the process of developing CAs, these nuances of language and conversation and the problems that arise due to lack of awareness around them should take center stage alongside the technical challenges. Yeah, definitely true.
For sure.
The sort of, and I think, so where we've gotten so far, I think, assumes a sort of design process for conversational assistance where you design the interactions ahead of time and then you implement it and then you put it into users.
Right.
And at Raza, we have a slightly different stance towards that, where you use sort of C data to develop your prototype of system, and then as soon as possible, you have people start using it. I mean, starting with test users, you're not like, it's almost done. Here you go, users of my system. And using that to continuously improve the system. So if you've heard the term conversational driven development, that's our sort of stance, because you're not going to know, just as a developer, where everyone who's trying to use your assistant is coming from, unless you're developing for like your 3 friends that you go get coffee with all the time and you're trying to schedule coffee dates, that sort of thing. Yeah, do you want to say something about that, Mady?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that's primarily because we don't know how real users think and interact. And we're not going to only use synthetic data or hypothetical data to generate those conversations. Because just like Rachel said, I mean, I know a finite set of people. So when I try to design conversations or personas, I'm going to maybe try to work off of the knowledge that I have. And we don't want to exclude anyone from the conversation, right? So it's best to, test with test users, make fixes, push it back into production, and then release it to real users so that you could actually, because real users will tell you what they want, and then you know how they say things, you refer to things, so you can actually use that data and use, you put that into the bot, which is really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And then continuously updating and improving your system over time.
Yeah, just like any other software application, you make continuous changes and iterative development and deployment. And it's not any different with conversational software. You still follow the best practices of CI/CD. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think we definitely agree that this is potentially a way to design a very bad assistant that is not very useful. And to address this, basically, at Raza, we rethought the way that assistant design worked.
Right.
We have opinions.
We have opinions. Trademark.
True. You want to take the next one?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was also going to say, I mean, we have DevOps, right? And now people more and more are talking about DevSecOps. And I think we had a speaker at the Raza at L3AI talk about the entire conversational, life cycle and tools to streamline conversational AI development. And they talked about everything ops, which is like a new term that I really liked, because you have to be thinking about these other considerations along with just the technical challenges of developing and deploying a bot.
For people who aren't as familiar with DevOps and the rest of those things, do you want to unpack those terms a little bit?
Oh, yeah. DevOps is well, essentially think of this as like CI/CD. So you design and develop
continuous integration.
Continuous. Oh, thank you for saying that. I was like, oh, CI/CD. Everyone knows what that is. Thank you. Yeah, continuous integration and continuous deployment. Some people say continuous development too, because that just implies that you're deploying whatever you've developed continuously in a cycle. And you have lots of tools that help you set up your continuous integration and continuous development or deployment life cycles. So DevOps basically is the field that does CI/CD. And DevSecOps is just introducing and thinking about privacy and security from the get-go, and thinking about that while you design and deploy applications, as opposed to thinking about security after the fact. And I think what they're saying is here, well, think about, these nuances of language and conversation and all of these ethical considerations alongside technical challenges. So Uday Tattaraju talked about everything ops, which I thought was a cool way to describe thinking about privacy and security and ethical considerations, along with, including that within your CI/CD setup. Okay, yeah. Language is inherently social, cultural, contextual, and historical, which means that the design of agent dialogue necessarily reflects a particular worldview. Yeah, totally. As tools that exist within the social realm, socially sensitive conversations are unavoidable. Yeah. How these socially sensitive issues are responded to plays a significant role in terms of how such sensitive issues and individuals affected by them are perceived. Recent work, you might want to take a look at that later. Recent work studied how CAs handle sensitive requests involving sexual harassment and bullying. Okay, that's interesting. The authors found that while commercial conversational systems often avoid answering such requests altogether, and rule-based systems usually try to deflect these topics, data-driven systems risk responding in a way that can be interpreted as flirtatious, oh no, and sometimes counter-aggressive. Okay. I mean, natural language generation is problematic for many reasons, but this is obviously one of those reasons where...
I will say neural natural language generation. So I am perfectly fine with like slot filling, which we've been doing for decades, and it works fine.
Right.
But yeah, so like the sort of GPT-3 language model bias just, again, you hallucinate, you do inappropriate things.
Lots of inappropriate things, yeah.
Yeah. There were some good examples at the Widening NLP keynote that we've referred to a couple of times, like telling kids that Santa is dead. If you're not familiar, Santa is a figure that gives Christmas gifts to children, and knowing about and believing about Santa is a very important part of American culture. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
That is such a good way to put it. That's an amazing description.
And not just American culture, but it is very common in America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes counter-aggressive. Yes, very true. Similarly, it was found, no, you're good. Similarly, it was found that race-related conversations are often deflected by chatbots. Given their pervasiveness, these topics are something an open domain agent should be designed to handle responsibly. Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Although the rationale behind such design is to take a neutral, we were talking about this, a neutral stance, avoidance and deflection of complex social issues can symbolize either endorsement, trivialization, or devaluation of the topic or an individual's experience. Yeah, very true. I think there's no such thing as like neutral or indifferent today, especially with language itself being so contextual and often problematic. And design as well is also tends to be very exclusive, right? So how you design a product. Anyway, there's lots of problems with that. Funny story, I designed a chatbot in 2016, and that's when people started saying Black Lives Matter a lot more than they did previously. Although in 2016, it was not as widely quote unquote acceptable, right? Obviously acceptable by the systems that wanted to maintain status quo, obviously. But I was building it and I thought, all right, let me just like ask the Google Assistant and